which we're supposed to start with two. We're supposed to say Shir Malot. Okay? From the bottom of the parts. Okay, we'll do Shir Malot Ab Kuf Lamed. Shir Hamalot Mimakim Praticha Adonai. Adonai Shima B'Koli Keno Znecha Kashuva L'Chol Tachnunai. Im Avonot Tishmoria Adonai Mi'amod. Ki Imcha Slicha L'Man Tivoreh. Kiviti Adonai Kivita Nafshi B'li Pro Hacholti. נפשי לאדוני משמרים לבוקר, שומרים לבוקר. יחג ישראל אל אדוני כי מאדוני החסד, במופדות, הוא יפדה את ישראל מכל במיטב. Okay. The second shir is going to be more, I would say, fun, more interesting, I think. It's a less ethical. We all keep the Torah, right? So the goal this year is to understand the difference between the word Torah and Torah. You understand? I'll tell a little family story. My daughter showed me one day a picture my granddaughter drew, coming back from I think first grade or second grade. They were learning Pirkei Avot or Masechet Avot, okay? And it was a picture of Moshe Rabbeinu on Mount Sinai, giving the Torah to a female, right? To a woman, right? And then from the woman giving it to another man, right? And the other guy bringing it to a shul, to a Beit Knesset. What's that? Moshe kibel Torah misinai, umisara liYeshua, u'Yeshua l'anshei Beit Knesset HaGadol. When she heard the Mishnah, she said, God gave the Torah to Moshe. Moshe gave it to Sarah. Sarah gave it to Yeshua, and Yeshua gave it to the men of the shul. So that was it. That was her drawing. Perfect. Great.
You have to have nikudot.
Yeah.
Okay. Olim chadashim need nikudot. So many words change.
So it's such a cute picture. But what I'm getting at is we know the word. When we say Torah, we think of Hagba, don't we? When we say Torah, right? We got the Torah from Har Sinai. But the word Torah in the Torah, got it, is pretty complicated. Now, I'll start from Parshat Mishpatim while we have it. Open up Perek Dalet. I'm going to give a source sheet much earlier today. I just have a rule of thumb that, from experience, that when you give a source sheet before a class starts, no one pays attention to you. They're looking at the source sheet trying to figure out what's going to be. Like, want to be a prophet. And then the key part, the most important part of the shir is the opening, is what's called what's the word?
Punchline.
The engagement. Got it? No, you have to ask a question to get people thinking, and then you develop it. But you have to get people engaged in the beginning. So you need everyone's attention in the beginning to get the main point where you're going, and then you try to develop it. So the goal this year is to understand what the word Torah means in the Torah. Got it? Now, why is it this week's Parsha? Because in Perek Chavdalet Pasuk Yud Bet, after we have the whole big ceremony. Remember, we just got Parshat Mishpatim. We got a level where we have lots more laws to teach. And Moshe goes up in Pasuk Yud Bet. What's God tell Moshe Rabbeinu? V'yom Hashem b'Shem Alei Hara. Come up the mountain. Ve'yesham. Be there. Ve'tna lacha. Three things. Luchot Even and the Torah and the Mitzvah. Got that? So Moshe is going up for the first 40 days. You get three things. The Luchot, which you're going to break, but you know the Luchot, right? Michelangelo, the whole picture. Okay. And did I have it? Oh, there's not in the shul here. Most shuls have that. You know the two tablets, there's really two copies of the same thing in ancient times? Some Parshitim say that, but never mind. It's not half and half like they have on that. But let's get back to the thing. They get Luchot Even, which is the Brit, the contract, and the Torah and the Mitzvah. Now, those words Torah and Mitzvah are clearly unclear. Why? Because every commentator explains them differently. I don't think there's one, down the line, 10 different comment. What it is? What's the Torah? What each word's referring to? Got it? So simply Torah is Torah Shebiktav, Torah Shabbat. You follow? There are tons of different things. It can't be Torah Shebiktav, it's Asher Katafti, but that's something else. But I'm saying it's really confusing. So I want to suggest what the word Torah means in this sentence. What's Moshe going up to get for the first 40 days? Is it the laws for the Mishkan, like Rambam says, or something else? So what I need to do is follow the word Torah in Chumash and see what it means. Now, what's this shoresh of the word Torah? What Hebrew word is it based on? Hora'ah, which means Instruction. Like horaot, a moreh, teacher. Like when you instruct something, so a book of instructions is called the Torah. Got it? So I'll give you a quick example. Just to jump ahead to Sefer Vayikra for a minute. In Perek Vav, someone mentioned the Haftarah from Parshat Tzav before. That was a good point. Remember, in Tzav, God says, "What's Yirmiyahu?" Yirmiyahu says, when I took you out of Egypt, I didn't tell you about korbanot. I told you about obeying me and being a nation representing me. If you come to visit me, so don't come empty-handed. But God didn't choose a nation to feed him. God chose a nation to represent him by how we act. Now, again, so what do we have? We have as follows. In Perek Vav, like that, it's Zot Torat Ha'olam. Now, look at the next Parsha, next paragraph. Zot Torat HaMincha. Then we have, skip one, then Zot Torat HaChatat. Zot Torat HaShanim. Got it? At the end of Perek Zayin, we have Zot HaTorah Lo Mincha. So the word Torah in Sefer Vayikra means not the Torah, but rather, isn't there a Torah in making Shulit?
Procedure.
Isn't there a Torah in making Shulit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll get it. Let me get it for you, or
No,
I
I
got
don't
that.
know
Just
what's
put it
going
on quiet. That's all.
I think
Okay,
somebody's worried about it.
The word Torah means a set of procedural instructions how to bring a korban chatat, how to bring a korban olam, how to bring a specific korban. Zot Torah HaMitzorah later on. It's a procedure, isn't it? Sprinkling this, sprinkling that. A yoledet. Zot Torah yoledet. So all through Vayikra, in Bamidbar also, Zot Torah Taknot, Zot Torah Nazir. The word Torah in Vayikra and in Bamidbar mean okay. Want me to get what?
I'm going to go out.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So it's fine. So the word Torah in Vayikra and Bamidbar is clearly talking about a procedural law, usually relating to the temple, some temple service. Now, do we have the word, other than here in Shemot, do we have the word Torah in Shemot anywhere else? Okay, I'll save you some time. No, the word Torah. The word Torah. Right? So remember, Zot Chukat HaPasach? Remember that at the end of Parshat Bo? And then we say at the end, Torah Achat Yelachem, V'Lager Gab B'Tochachem. The same, let's say there's a convert, stranger. Because he didn't come out of Egypt, I might think that he can't bring Korban Pesach, or he does it differently. What's Chumash tell you? The same way someone who came out of Egypt keeps Passover, the same way a convert keeps Passover. Remember? Torah knows everyone who's Jewish, whether a convert, whatever the background is, we're all part of the same nation, and he can say he left Egypt even though they didn't. You understand? But it means it's Zot Chukat HaPasach. Here's the laws of Pesach. In what house you eat it, don't cut the thing, etc. And the same procedure applies to a Jew from birth and for a convert. Understand? You're getting equality under the law. Equal opportunity. No. Is the word Torah ever in Sefer Bereshit? One time. Okay, it's easy. This you should know because it's the first. It's the first aliyah in Parshat Vayetze. In Vayetze? No, I'm sorry. Parshat Toldo. Right? What's that? God told Yitzhak. Remember, he wants to go down to Egypt. Stay here in Egypt. And it says, "Ekev asher shama Avram b'koli." Ring a bell. Vayishmor mishmarti mitzvotai chukutav v'torotai. What Avram did? Avram obeyed me, shama b'koli, and he kept my mishmar, my mitzvah, my Torah. Now, whatever, it's what an argument, what each word means, but clearly the word Torah is not everything. It's one category of laws. Probably means my instructions. Did God ever give Moshe instructions? Did God ever give Avram Avinu instructions? So some people say Leftach has instructions. The Akedah was like, and some Parshim say when he told Avram to listen to his wife. Remember, that's much more difficult than the Akedah. Remember, God told Avram everything Sarah tells you have to listen to her. Yeah, I mean, listen. What do you call it? The question, which was the more difficult test. Now, I'm just joking. I'm gonna get in trouble. Now,
Why your wife's not?
okay, that Seven's recording. Speaking of which, I should put it closer here. Already. Now, Moshe goes up to the Torah. The word Torah, the word Torah has a whole new meaning in Sefer Devarim. Okay. Now, remember, Moshe goes up to Har Sinai to get three things. What are they? The Luchot Eved, the Torah, and the Mitzvah. Now, whenever he got, right, what should he do when he comes down after 40 days? He should teach them, right? But when he comes down after 40 days, he can't teach these laws. Why? We have a situation, right? We have a Kadega, right? And poor Moshe wanted to be a rabbi, a teacher. Right? He had to be a counselor. What do you call it? A lawyer. He became, right? He had to get a new contract. He had to become a fundraiser. And then first show rabbi. Never wanted the job in the first place. Now, but that was his punishment for any way to meet you. He had to become a shul rabbi. Anyway, I'm just joking. So listen, but no, seriously. So he has to go negotiate a new contract. Right? And then the new contract, God's more forgiving, remember? And when he comes down with the new contract, right? Remember his face is shining and everything? Right? Then it says in Chumash, he teaches all the laws again on Har Sinai. But we only know that Moshe received laws on Har Sinai, and he taught them when he came down, but Sefer Shemot never tells us what the laws were. You with me? Which is strange, isn't it? What does Sefer Shemot focus on? On the covenant. On the first covenant, remember the covenantal ceremony, the laws of Mishpatim we learned about. The covenant breaking, because we didn't live up to it. Moshe negotiating a new covenant. Parshat Kitisa, got it? With God being more forgiving. And the symbol of the covenant, better known as the Mishkan. And that God can dwell with us even though we're not so perfect. But we never find out in Sefer Shemot what did Moshe receive on the 40 days on Har Sinai. Because it never says anything. We never know what it is. Understand? Some people say maybe it was the Mishkan, but most people learned the Mishkan was on the second 40 days, right? It's easy to prove that. So, when you study Chumash, the question is, when Moshe goes up for the first 40 days, what did he receive? We know that he received laws. We know he taught the laws, but Sefer Shemot never tells us what they were. Now, guess where we're going to find the answer? In Sefer Dvarim. And what I want to show you now, the laws in Sefer Dvarim are black and white. They're referred to as the Torah. Okay? Now, what I want to do now in the church is simply prove that to you, and it's as simple as could be. Understand? The word Torah is a word used to explain a general name for all the laws that Moshe receives on the first 40 days on Har Sinai. And so I want to prove that to you, okay? Now, without doing a whole class on Devarim, just a 2-minute, because I'm hoping you remember this, but if someone asked a regular person who finished like regular Jewish education, what is the topic of Sefer Devarim? What do they usually say? Repetition of what? Of the first 4 books. Who's heard that from teachers or somewhere? Right? It's like, it's impossible. You follow? Everyone just says it, but the fact everyone says it doesn't make it true. Now, how can you prove it? Read the first 4 books, okay? And then read Devarim, and see if it's a review. There's not one story from Sefer Bereshit in Sefer Devarim, right? Not one of the stories of Bereshit, not even Yudan and Tamar. The flood, nothing at all, not one story. It mentions our forefather, no stories at all. Yosef, nothing. The story of the Exodus, the plagues, the burning bush, not there. It mentions God split the sea, but the story is not there. We have the story of Har Sinai, which we'll see why. And we have the story of the sin of the golden calf. But that's it from Shemot. But none of Bereshit is there. 90% of Shemot's not there. Not a word about the Mishkan in Dvarim, right? How can we review Chumash and not mention the Mishkan? Impossible. Vayikra, not a word. I mean a word. The word maybe that means Shemitah. The word, there's that concept of Shemitah, but Shemitah Ksafim, not Shemitah. There's different laws of Shemitah. Nothing. Some laws, maybe 10% of the laws in Kedoshim to you are in Dvarim. And by Midbar, the story of the spies is repeated, and conquering, much more detailed in review. But I'm getting at 90% of the first 4 books, laws and stories, are not in Dvarim. And when you read the laws in Dvarim, 90% of them, the reader of Chumash never saw before. Got that? So it's clearly not a review of the first 4 books. You can say it 1,000 times, but it's not.
Moshe basically wrote most of what's in Devarim, no? That's how
Moshe says in the beginning, I didn't write a word. These are all from God. Exactly the opposite. I know what they say in academic. It doesn't say that in Devarim. We're going to say, all you have to do is read Devarim. Moshe is going to tell the people, I'm teaching you what God told me word for word. He screams it. Okay. And we'll see it inside, okay? It's so simple. It's just, The reason why is because of summer vacation. Because we read Devarim after Yom Kippur from Tisha B'Av, everyone on vacation, and by the time we get to the end of Devarim, it's our Yom Tov season, right?
That's right.
And you're studying all laws of Trua, Tkiya, the whole, all the Rosh Hashanah laws, and no one has time for Sefer Devarim. Why? It's a review anyhow. You can follow? It's just totally neglected, the book. So I'm going to spend 10 minutes to understand what the book is. Moshe Rabbeinu in Devarim is giving. Oh, by the way, what's misleading in Chumash and in Chazal, there's another name for Mishnah Torah, and that's in Chumash, which in Latin is called Deuteronomy, which means second teaching or second law. But that's not what it means in Chumash. Vishinantam. Mishnah, a Torah, we'll see. It's called a Torah, but it's a Torah that needs constant repetition. You understand the difference? There's a difference between a set of laws that's being repeated as opposed to a set of laws that needs constant repetition. Understand? I'll prove that to you in a minute. In other words, the laws of Devarim, you say it every day in Shema without realizing it. That's the introduction to the laws in Sefer Devarim. It's the name of the book. But Devarim will be a set of laws. They come with the Ten Commandments, just like the laws of Mishpatim, but a different topic. They come with the Ten Commandments. And they're so important they get their own book. But it's a set of laws that need constant repetition. Moshe's taught it numerous times before. The last time he teaches the laws is in the 40th year. Sefer Devarim is the last time Moshe teaches the laws. Now, I'm going to take teacher's priority, or whatever it's called, and I'm going to start the book with chapter 5. Spoiler. There's one major speech in Sefer Devarim. It starts in chapter 5 and goes to chapter 26. One big long speech. Super long, like over 20 chapters. Super long speech. Got it? That's the main part of the book. The first 4 chapters is the introduction to that. Right? And the last chapters of the book is about that Torah, about that speech. Understand? But the center of the speech is chapters 5 through 26. With me? So, we're not going to read from chapters 5 to 26. We're going to cheat. Like as we do at Asiyum during the 9 days. Yeah, just do the last line of the Masechet. Do cheat and see what it's about. We go like this. The rule of thumb in speeches is there's 3 parts to every speech. Remember, say what you're going to say say what you said. You learned that, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember, never start a speech with what you're not going to talk about. Remember? That's the biggest mistake. If you ever see it happening, you can smile right away. I was going to talk about this, you lose everybody. Right? Get right to the point. So Moshe knows how to speak. In fact, it's so cool because when he got his job, what did he say to God? Lo ish devarim anochi. It's like one of the biggest puns in Chumash. Or not a pun. It's satire. What's the word? Irony? Or sad? Yeah, it's ironic. Now, okay. So we're going to read the first line of the speech to find out what it's about. Okay. So all you have to do is read Perek Hey Pasuk Aleph. Okay. Perek Hey Pasuk Aleph. In Dvarim, Perek Hey Pasuk Aleph, and now you can get out the source sheet if you want. Now also, I need the Chumash anyhow, but the source sheet will help us to review. The main thing is, what I want to do now is show you the meaning of the word Torah in Sefer Dvarim in light of the speech. We're going to read the first line of the speech to understand what the speech is about. Chapter 5 in Dvarim, Perek Hey Pasuk Aleph. Okay. We start with the narrator of Chumash. Vayikra Moshe al Kol Yisrael. Moshe calls all of Israel, and what's he tell him? Shema Yisrael, but not our time, right? Shema Yisrael what? Et hachukim v'et hamishpatim asher onochi dover b'osneichem hayom. Remember? Listen to all these laws I'm teaching you. We'll see what I am is in a minute. Teach you today. And what do you have to do with these laws? U'lemadatem otam u'shmartam lasotam. It's not laws you have to keep, it's laws you have to study and keep. The Jewish law requires study. That makes them principles. You follow? Study the laws, and that teaches you what to do hayashar b'nei Hashem. Now, after Chumash, the rest of our rabbinic tradition is how the rabbis study these laws and apply them. That's called Torah Shabbat, isn't it? But the main book of laws that Moshe is teaching, these are laws that require not just reading and keeping, but they require study. Understand? So Jewish law needs to be studied, and I'll take a copy also. Okay, whatever. Okay. Oh, okay, very good. Okay, actually, the first lesson was right there. See, Moshe goes up to get Luchot Eben, Torah, the Mitzvah. We'll go over this in a minute. Yeah, this reviews everything we just did. Okay. We'll get back to it in a minute, though. Okay, let's go back to things. We're on the back page now. The word Torah and Sefer Dvarim. So don't look at the first source yet. We'll stay that first place. In chapter 5, verse 1. Okay? Vayikra Moshe Kol Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, these chukim and mishpatim, which I'm commanding you today, and learn them and keep them. Got that? Pretend you were there. And someone gets up and says, Rabbi gets up, listen everybody, here's a set of laws you have to keep. What's in the back of your mind? Under what authority? Who's this guy? Who does he think he is? Moshe Rabbeinu? I mean, yes. Who is this guy giving these laws? So what's Moshe have to, before he teaches the laws, he has to explain under what authority? Under what makes them obligatory? And what's he say? You signed a contract. Pasuk bet, what's it say? Hashem Elokeinu, Karatim Anu Brit B'Chorev. The laws I'm about to teach you are part of a covenant that you signed in Chorev. Think like a teenager. It's the 40th year. What are you going to say? I didn't sign that contract. Who signed the contract? My parents. I'm responsible for my parents. If waiting for them, you wouldn't be born. But Yomrav. And therefore, what's he saying right away? It wasn't only your parents in Pasuk Gimel. It wasn't only your parents. It was what? It was with everyone. Everyone standing here. It was a covenant between God and the people. And as Rabbi Sachs wrote in one of his books, Judaism, as he said, I remember, I think probably in one of his books, his introduction, because Judaism is a contagious, it's a hereditary disease. He said, remember his line there? Yeah, because we catch it from our parents, and
they swore on their children.
Yeah, and why he calls it disease, you have to read this book.
But
now,
really, in a legal system, that does not work, because my grandfather can write whatever he wants, but I'm not qualified.
So that's why there's a rabbinical concept, a biblical concept, that the covenant is not between God and people, small p, but between God and the people, capital P. Understand? God, that's why it's called Knesset Yisrael.
Yeah.
Not the Knesset here, but Knesset Yisrael, Am Yisrael. Got it? And then there's a covenant with God and the people, and you're part of the people. You're born into a people, whether you like it or not. Got it? Yeah. It's something we're born into. And
without free choice.
Yeah, without free choice. No, I mean we could have said no, but there would have been a mountain over our head. Remember that Midrash? Which means we had free. Yeah. Now.
I thought I remembered in my conversion classes.
Yeah.
That the people originally said we're making these promises for this reason and this reason, and Hashem said no, those are not good reasons. And they said on our kids' lives, and Hashem said,
okay, yeah. So what you're going to find what does Midrash do? Midrash takes a thematic problem. How can God force a covenant on people without that? And it makes up beautiful midrashim to embellish that idea. Like the mountain over your head. Remember he said you offered to all the other nations? Remember? And he said, I don't want it because it says lo tignov, I don't want it because it says lo tinaf, etc. And we came to us and said, is it free? And God said yes. He said, we'll take 2. You know that line, didn't you? Yes, like that. Now, by the way, in that midrash, was God offering it to all the nations and only we're the only ones who said yes? Or was God looking for one nation? You understand? I mean, did God want everyone to keep the Torah? We're the only nation that fell for it? Or by definition, is the Torah only for one nation? You follow? Is God looking for one nation to represent him and he has 70 choices, he's got to pick one shidduch from one of them? Or did God want everyone to keep the Torah? It's a fundamental understanding of Judaism. Is the Torah for everybody? The Torah, I mean. Or is it because we're one nation representing God, it's special for us? Got the idea? We'll get to the answer to that.
What is the answer to that?
In other words, from the same Torah. That was their role.
Yeah, but that's a rabbinical construct. It doesn't say that in Chumash. That God wants man, all humankind. We learn from the flood story that God has expectations from all humankind, whether they have laws or not. Correct? He couldn't punish the flood. I need the flood story to teach the most basic concept of the Bible, of Chumash, is that God has expectations from humans, even without being commanded. It's like you're pre-programmed. It's called whatever it is. Now, what he expects from you can argue from day to tomorrow, but there's a concept of tov ever since day 1, isn't there? And ever since chapter 2, there's a concept of ra, isn't there? Because what God does is good. Once he makes man in God's image, he's like God because he can be creative, but he can also do good or bad. Remember you ever read Chumash? That's like the biggest theme in the beginning. Now, we have to try to do good, and we argue like crazy what is good, don't we? It used to be the Knesset, but now it's. That we should argue. Ideally, we should argue for what's good. What's Hayashar B'nei Hashem, and it's and you grow by arguing about it. But you have a common goal. You want to do good. You can argue what good is. People want to do bad. That's a different story. Now, all the biggest problems we have, arguments, the good arguments, are between good and good. You know what I'm saying? You want to do good. Remember, I learned from a line: no good deed goes unpunished. Someone who's the CEO of a big company taught me that. Like, what did you learn from running your company? No good deed goes unpunished. You mean well, and then oops, someone will find a shul rabbi that everyone likes. Impossible. You follow? If everyone likes him, he's not a good rabbi. It means if he doesn't get anybody angry, it's just not that. Now back to Dvarim. So God's saying, I made this covenant with you. Now, because we mentioned the covenant, the laws are binding of a covenant. What's Moshe have to quote first? The covenant. Which, how did God give that covenant? See Pasuk Daled, Panim B'Fanim, that was direct. But then I became the middleman. And then in chapter 5 he quotes the Ten Commandments, correct? Or the 10 statements. And then he tells a story. I'll just ad-lib the story at the end of Parakeh. I'll take my word for it, we'll read part of it. In your Chumash, look in Parakeh. It's not in the source sheet. Look in Parakeh. The people get all scared. And just go to Parakeh Pasuk Abdallah. See what it says? After telling Moshe, listen, we're believers, this is qualified, but it's impossible to survive such a thing. We can't take our seat anymore. You go get the notes. You go to lecture, we'll take your notes. Pretend. This is what he says in Daled. What's he tell them in Pasuk Daled? Kravatau Shma. What's that mean? You go and listen to everything that God's commanding. And everything you teach us in God's name, what are we going to do to? V'shamanu v'asinu. They got the right order. Nishma v'naseh. Got it? Because everything you say, you go up and get all the laws, because we'll die if we go any more of this. You go up, and whatever you say in God's name, v'shamanu v'asinu. We're saying Nasa v'nishma now too. You see Pasuk Abdallah? Everything that God said, most of the people say, we're committed, we're believers. 10 was enough. You get the rest of them. And anything you say in God's name, we're going to keep. God gives him a thumbs up. You know what thumbs up is, right? And now look in Pasuk Chavzayin. God tells Moshe, Lech amor lehem shuva lechem lo lechem. Go tell the people, go back to your tents. And Pasuk Chavchet is the key. Got it? Moshe is telling the story to the people 40 years later how he got these laws. So God told Moshe as follows: V'ata po amodim adi. You stay here with me on Har Sinai. V'adabra elecha. 3 things. What are they? It's called ha-mitzvah. Remember the word ha-mitzvah? The commandment. We'll see what that is in a minute. And the chukim mishpatim, which I'm teaching you to teach them to keep where? In the land of Israel. Got it? In other words, you accepted to be a nation representing God. God set aside a land for you to become that nation. In order to become a nation representing God, you need a guidebook. I need a guidebook of how to take a nation of slaves and make them into a nation of serving God. How to become remember we agreed to be a Mamlechet Poni V'Goy Kadosh at Har Sinai, to be a nation in the service of God, not just as individuals, but as a people, capital P. I need a book, a guidebook, how to turn us into a nation representing God. We need party headquarters. What's that going to be called? Our party headquarters? But not Buckingham Palace, or not the thing. We need Hamakom HaShivchar Hashem to make God's reputation great. Because we're representing God. God's reputation is shame is a big thing in Chumash. We need laws of a judicial system. Remember Shoftim v'Shotrim? We need a legal system. We need a judicial system. We need a Supreme Court. We need political leaders. If you want a king, it's up to you. But if you want a king, a lot of things he can't do. Remember? There's laws for a king. That's no other book talks about that beforehand. I have Shevet Levi who's in charge of education. I have to fund them. 10% of your give them maser. You have compensation for Shevet Levi. We have Kohanim, we have jobs to do. We have an education system. We have a social justice system. There's laws about how to go to war, who goes to war, when you go to war, offering peace before you go to war. All these things like that. It's all in the Devarim, isn't it? None of that is in earlier books. But it's how we're going to establish a nation, right, representing God. But I need a guidebook, that's what the Torah, to explain to a people who just accepted to be a nation representing God how to accomplish your goal. Just like there's a procedure how to bring a Korban Mincha, there's a procedure how to become a nation serving God. Understand? Now, so go back to Pasuk Chavchet again. God told Moshe, you stay here with me, and I'm going to teach you that, again, ha-mitzvah and the chukim mishpatim, which I'm going to teach you to teach them to keep in the land that they're about to conquer. And then it says, good to keep them, then I'll help you. And now look at Pasuk Perek Vav, Pasuk Aleph. What's coming up now in the speech? V'zot ha-mitzvah v'chukim mishpatim, which God commanded me to teach you to keep in the land. You follow? That's introducing the speech. And therefore, what's coming up now? All the laws that Moshe got on the first 40 days. Moshe is saying it black on white, right? There's nothing to argue about. Now they finished his introduction. What's the first law he's going to teach? Look in Pasuk Daled in Perek Vav and close your eyes. Okay. Shema Yisrael. Why is it so important? Yeah, put it this way. I'm going to go back to Perek for a minute. First line of the speech. Listen up, everybody, right? To the laws I'm teaching you. Learn them and keep them. Under what authority? Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem our boss, Karatim under Brit B'chorev. Right? We have a covenant with God. Hashem Elokeinu means Hashem our boss. Now he's our God. He's everyone's God. Parentheses. Here's the covenant. Got it? And here's the laws, how I got the laws. Now I'm going to pick up again from Pasuk Bet in Parakeh. What was Pasuk Bet? Hashem Elokeinu made a brit with us. Parentheses. Babam. Let's pick up where we left off again. Perek Vav Pasuk Dalet. Shema Yisrael. Like you said before, you got to wake him up again. Who's Hashem Elokeinu? Who made a brit with us? He's everyone's God. Hashem Echad. Understand? You understand where Shema comes from? Our boss is everyone's God. He's Hashem. He's the one and only God. But we're chosen to serve him. He's Hashem Elokeinu. How should we do our job? V'aftat Hashem Elokech v'chol levavcha. Understand Shema? Now that you have the right attitude, hopefully, because if you're serving God, if you're an employee, if you don't love your job, it will never work. Looking on Pasuk Vav, Vayu hadvarim ha'ela, asher nochim mitzad chayom. What's coming up in this speech, the Dvarim, which I'm commanding you today, al levavecha. What do you have to do with these laws? V'shiratam levavecha, which means you repeat them to your children. V'dibarta bam 24/7. Everywhere you turn on your. The laws of Sefer Dvarim need constant repetition. Understand? We fulfill that by saying Shema every day. We don't read the whole speech. That's all we cheat a little bit. Now, we do a short version. But these laws need constant repetition because they surround us 24/7. Because the core set of laws of how we become a nation. I'll just give you a quick example. In Pasuk, what do you call it? Skip later on in Perek Vav after Shema. Just go right to Pasuk Yud Zayin. See, in Ted Zayin says, don't test God like you did back in Mara, like before we got to our Sinai, 40 years ago. But then he says what? Shemar v'shav, keep all the laws I'm teaching you today. Do you? And then Pasuk Yud Chet, keep all the laws I'm teaching you, and then do what's what? Do what's right. How do you know what's right? So the way Ramban explains beautifully here, a great Ramban, look at it one time, he says, how do I know what's Yashar B'nei Hashem? By extrapolating. He says, it's not equal to the laws of him. I'm giving you laws to train you, to teach you principles, and then what do you have to do? Ask yourself how to apply these laws in any new situation. So that's what's called doing Hayashar B'nei Hashem based on the laws. I can't just say be a good person. I need to give examples. I need dots on a graph, and I have to tie the dots together. So Ramban is saying the main job of a Jew is doing Hayashar B'nei Hashem. Basically to walk with God. That's why when you ask a rabbi, what should I do? He's telling you how to walk with God. Therefore, what's the name for Jewish law? Not law, but walking. Because we're walking with God. Remember, Balak the Bidrachav? It's all through Devarim. We'll see that. When you ask a rabbi what to do, the rabbi is supposed to study our traditions, Chumash and Torah Shebichtav, Shabbat, and then how to apply that in a new situation. Basically, every question is, how do I walk with God? Now, you can argue. This is healthy. You know, ask a doctor what to do, he'll argue. Ask a dietitian what's the best food to eat. Rogalach. No. Or healthy. Probably not, but keeps you awake. Now, the goal of being Jewish is walking, doing Hayashar B'nei Hashem. But I need a guidebook to give me guidance. And he goes on and on about loving God and fearing God and stuff like that. Now, what I want to show you is the first section of this, like what's called Etchan and Ekev, is all about loving God and fearing God and your relationship with God. It sounds very repetitive in speech. He quotes what God told him and he adds some rebuke of his own now. But skip to Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud Gimel, which you know by heart as well. if you read from Vav to Yud Gimel, from Vav to Yud Aleph, from Vav to Yud Aleph, you see it's like, just sounds like a broken record. It's not that. But it's pretty much one big idea of, it's like Musar Shmuz all the time. Don't forget God, love God, don't follow other gods. And listen to God, and look what happened last time you didn't listen to God. Tons and tons of Musar. Finally, in Perek Vav, Pasuk, actually in Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Yud, he talks about you're going to Israel, where you don't have a Nile River and you need rain, but your rain is a function of your deeds. That's the Shema we say every day. It's it then sets you to Gimel. Because if you want God on your side, if you want rain, you can't depend on a river in Israel. That was Egypt. In Israel, it's rough. You're dependent on rain, which means you're dependent on God, which means you're dependent on your deeds. So you better be good. That's why Shema. Some people say it every day to remember that. That's over. L'man Yirbu Menachem and Pasuk Chaf Aleph. See that? Look on Pasuk Chaf Bet. We're going to read Chaf Bet and Chaf Gimel together. What's it say there? Kim Shema Tishma. Shmor, what? What's it say? Shmor Tishmur Kol. Ha Mitzvah. No, not Mitzvah. In Pasuk Chaf Bet. In Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Chaf Bet. What's it say? Kim Shema Tishmu et Kol HaMitzvah Hazot. HaMitzvah Hazot, which is to do what? To love God, continue. Right? To walk in His ways, right? And to cling to Him. That's, some mitzvot are all mitzvot are created equal, but some mitzvot are more equal than others. HaMitzvah, it's a definitive the, called He'idiyah. The mitzvah is your attitude to God. That's ha-mitzvah is being defined now. What's ha-mitzvah? Loving God, fearing God, walking in His ways, that's doing tzedek and mishpat, and clinging to God. That's a way of life. That's the commandment. That's been the topic ever since Shema, since V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. Got it? What do we do in davening every day? We cheat. We say the first paragraph of this section and the last paragraph. V'ahavta and Vayim Shemoah, as though we said everything in between.
They used to say the whole thing.
Yeah, and the Ten Commandments. But then people became unorthodox. If God said it, I keep it. If the rabbis made it up, we pick and choose. Remember? That Shita, therefore, no more Ten Commandments, because you might think they're too important. By making a big deal about the Ten Commandments, you're going to make a small deal about the other ones. So they just cut out of davening a couple thousand years ago. That was a nice thing. It makes sense. Saying Shema came with the Ten Commandments, and they cut it out. Read the history of the Siddur. It's interesting. But they were afraid of modern Orthodox. That's called a FOMO. That's the new thing I said. FOMO used to be fear of missing out. Now FOMO becomes fear of modern Orthodox. And then I made a blank called FOO. It's fear of open Orthodox. But that's my joke for like 18-year-olds. Now back to. I apologize. I'm used to teaching 18-year-olds, so I'm not used to teaching adults. I have to make the same jokes though. Now back to.
What's wrong with 81-year-olds?
Teaching yeshiva.
Okay. As Moshe started his career at 80, didn't he?
There you go.
He's okay. Now, back to. So you understand what the ha-mitzvah is? So, remember Moshe went up to get three things: the luchot even, Torah, and the mitzvah. I have a definition of ha-mitzvah, which makes sense. Luchot even, isn't that Sefer Dvarim? Luchot even or the Ten Commandments, chapter 5. Ha-mitzvah is chapters Shema Tavayim Shemoah, chapter 6 to 11, which is defined as the mitzvah. On that condition, God will give you. Oh, thank you. Okay. On that condition, God will God will help you conquer the land. Then God will help. If He says if you keep this law, God will conquer the land. And then cheat a little bit. Go to chapter 12, verse 1, Perek Yud Aleph, Perek Yud Bet Pasuk Aleph. What's that called? These are the Chukim Mishpatim. Remember, Ela Chukim Mishpatim Asher Tishmor Lasot. And what's going to begin out with chapter 12 to 26? The Chukim Mishpatim. Now I have to prove to you that Chukim Mishpatim equals Torah. That will be easy. I'll prove that to you in a minute. But what I'm getting at is that if I'm looking at what's Moshe going up to get, there's no doubt the speech that Moshe is teaching in Sefer Dvarim, in chapters 5 to 26, he says explicitly, these are laws that God gave me, together with the Ten Commandments on Har Sinai, assuming on the first 40 days. Got that? That's explicit. And I'm just quoting what God told me. Now, as he's teaching the laws, he says, oh, remember this, remember that, remember Katet Tamiri, remember your 40, remember? He gives Musar as he goes on. So the Musar is new, but the laws are old. They're 40 years old. And there's nothing in these laws that wouldn't have been said 40 years ago. with the Ten Commandments. That's why there's no Mishkan. You understand why there's no Mishkan in Dvarim? Because had we not sinned with Chet HaEgel, we would have gone right to Israel and built a permanent Mishkan called a Mikdash. The need for a portable temple is because of Chet HaEgel. You understand what happens? Why? That's the theme for Sefer Shemot. But the laws in Dvarim reflect the ideal before we sinned with Chet HaEgel. We should have kept them and gone right in. Now, in the meantime, we messed up totally, didn't we? First Chet HaEgel, then Chet HaMraglim. And because of Chet HaMraglim, everything's put off for 38 years, isn't it? When Moshe gives his introductory speech, what's he talk about? Why it's been 38 years. So what story was he review? That's the only story he talks about there. Because he's giving a pep talk. And he's saying now it's deja vu. 40 years ago, we were right here, about to go to Israel, and I taught you all these laws. And what happened? You guys messed up that. Don't blame your leaders, blame yourselves. Remember? That's why he doesn't blame the spies, he blames the people. Right? Yes, you're to blame. Now who's to blame? The leaders or the people? Everybody. Ask Engelman, whatever his name is. The Menachem Medina. Everyone's to blame, right? Everyone's sure the other people are to blame.
Now, Dafka, he says the leaders said Kitovah.
Yeah.
Kitovah.
I think
said,
of course, leaders didn't help too much. But everyone's to blame. But everyone's to blame because everyone thought everyone else is to blame. It's the role of Islam. Welcome to Jewish history. Now, what happened? Oh, so what I'm getting at is that explains the first speech. Moshe is not giving a historical preamble, what they call it in college. Okay? He's not giving a history. He's not repeating it. He's giving a pep talk to explain to them why it's been 40 years, and don't you dare mess up like your parents did. It's called deja vu. We'll prove it in a minute. Now we have the laws about Hamakom Asher Yivchar Hashem, about your national holidays, your national diet, your judicial system, your Supreme Court, your educators, your teachers, how to go to war and who goes to war, and how do you open for war, and then social justice, marriage laws, divorce laws, all things we never had before. Because it's a law about how to become a nation representing God. Now we're going to cheat and go right to the end of the speech. Once you bring your first fruits and say thank you, the whole thing, remember? Now let's read the end of the speech and see if it's going to summarize the whole speech, okay? So where am I find the end of the speech? The end of Perek Chavav. It should be on the source sheet also. The end of Perek Chavav. Yeah. See, it includes in chapter 26. It's a famous psukim, but 10. Before we read the conclusion, just a quick review. What was the covenant we made at Har Sinai to get the 10 Commandments? What did Moshe say? Im Shema Tishma B'Koli Ushmartem Et Briti Bitem Niskulam Mikolim Kili Kol Haaretz Vatem Tilu Mamleket Koni V'Gei Kadosh. Does that ring a bell from last Shabbos? 4 days ago? 5 days ago. Remember in Har Sinai? Remember reading that? God calls Moshe, go tell Bnei Yisrael Kol Tomar. Okay? You saw what I did? Im Shema Tishma B'Koli Ushmartem Et Briti Bitem Niskulam Vatem Tilu Mamleket Koni V'Gei Kadosh Elav V'Misher Tedaber. That should ring a bell, shouldn't it? That's Brit Sinai. We said yes, then we got the contract to 10 statements. Then we got Parshat Mishpatim. Now we're getting a whole set of laws of how to fulfill that contract to be a Mamlechet Kohen V'Goy Kadosh and be Gazam Skula. Remember that? Now, I just got a whole set of laws that tell us how to form that nation, and now we need a summary. Every line here is critical. Watch what happens now. We finished all the laws, and now we have a summary. Perek Chavav Pasuk Tetzayin. Have it? What's it say? Hayom Hazeh. It's been a long day since. That's how we began the speech, remember? Now we end the speech. 22 chapters is a long day. Everyone's falling asleep. They were checking their messages. Okay. Now, downloading from the cloud. That was the old joke there. Now, what happened? So, Hayom Hazeh. Listen carefully. Remember your question, whose laws are these? Who said Moshe wrote this? Listen. Hayom Hazeh. Hashem Elokecha metzavcha lasot etochim elev et hamishpatim. I'm only what? I'm only the transmitter. Whose laws are these? These are God's laws. Read the Rambam's 13 principles. Remember the Torah is from Moshe Rabbeinu? The Ikar Munah is not who wrote every little tag. It's when Moshe says these laws are from God, these are God's laws, and the rabbis didn't make it up. You follow? Why would people think Moshe is making up these laws? They believe in God. They can't miss them. They believe. They know that God took them out of Egypt and God gave them the 10 Commandments. But who decided that only Aaron could become a priest? That was Moshe. It's nepotism, right? Read the Parshat Korach, right? Korach believes in God, don't they? The 250. But hey, we want to bring Korban also. Let's just try it. But they're accusing Moshe of nepotism. And Moshe, what do you want from me? It was God's idea, and I'll prove it to you. Got it? And they said, swallow that. And they swallowed them up. You remember that story? But what I'm getting at is that Moshe has to tell the people, even though I'm teaching you, the laws I'm teaching you are from God. That's why I gave the whole introduction. But these are God's laws, not my laws. That's what it says. And how do you have to keep them? Remember the two sections? Your attitude, what do you have to keep? Or Mishpatim. Now we're going to have an exchange of vows. Remember on Yom Kippur, you have Anu Amech Ata Eloheinu, Anu Banech Ata Avinu, Anu Tzonech Ata. Remember all that stuff? Ata Reinu. Remember what's the last line? Anu Mamirecha, Ata Mamirenu. That's it's kept. Remember Anu Tzonech Ata. Remember it's a beautiful poem about our relationship. Listen to where it's coming from. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Okay, what's that? Et Hashem Hemarta Hayom. What did we take up? What statement did we make? What did we say about God? He's our God. That's Brit Milah. And the fourth cup, remember? That's the covenant of Chumash. I'm your God, you're my people. That's doing what Avram doing Tzedek Mishpat. Lishmor chukav mishpatav, lishmor b'kolo. Remember? Lishmor tishmor b'kolo yishmar tavet briti. Okay. What did God take upon himself? Hashem emircha yom. Hashem emircha, Hashem emarta, Hashem emircha. We took up ourselves. What did God take upon himself? Liot lolam skula kasher diber lach. Isn't that Har Sinai? And to keep all of his laws. Okay. Ulititcha yona kol hagoyim asher asa. To put you in a leadership position above the nations. For whose glory? For God's shem tila utiferet. And what will that make you? That will make you a Am Kadosh. Got it? I'm trying to show you at the conclusion, saying, keep these laws from chapter 5 to 26, and what have you become? You fulfilled the goal of Har Sinai to be a Mamlechet Koni V'Goy Kadosh. You can't miss the connection, how this connects right to Brit Sinai, isn't it? You think that whoever wrote Shemot wrote Sefer Devarim as well. It's the same thing. It's applying the same idea. But it's how to apply it, and I need an instruction book called the Torah. Now, what's my proof? If I could find a pasuk introducing this speech that calls the speech a Torah, we hit the jackpot, right? Okay. So go back to Perek Dalet pasuk Mem Dalet in your Chumash, or look at your source sheet. But I want you to see in your Chumash. Okay. Look. Go back to Perek pasuk Aleph and back it up. See Perek pasuk Aleph where the speech began. That's why I want you to have a regular Tanakh. You see it? Perek pasuk Aleph in Dvarim. That's Perek, right? That's the speech. Go back 4 lines to pasuk Mem Dalet. Don't stand up, but look at pasuk Dalet. V'zot ha'Torah asher sam Moshe. That's what we quote. That's introducing the speech, isn't it? And what does the speech include? Ele ha'edot v'chukim ha'mishpatim, which God commanded us when? When we left Egypt. That was the first year. And now 40 years later, he's teaching it again. Make sense? So this book, the book introduces the speech as Zot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe. Simple as could be. In the middle, for the king, what's the king have to write? This Mishneh Torah Zot HaSefer. Why does he have to be with him? It's his guidebook, how to run a nation. Because I need law of how a king has to behave. I need the law of how the king goes to war. Who goes to war? I need the law of the king has to make sure someone builds a temple and shouldn't be him. I need the law for... someone's got to be the CEO of the country. But his guidebook is a Torah. It's not a technical thing you have to write a Sefer Torah and get a reward kind of thing. The Torah has to be with him because it's his guidebook. Now, if the speech ended in Perek Chavav, let's see what happens in Perek Chav Zayin. Remember, the speech is introduced right before Perek with Zot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe. Let's go to Perek Chav Zayin. And after the speech is over, we have a new commandment. What's Moshe command the people to do? When you I'm leaving you, but when you cross the Jordan and go to Israel, the first place you're going to go to is Har Eival. And what are you going to build in Har Eival? A Mizbeach and Korban, just like Har Sinai. But you're going to take big stones and plaster them, and then chisel on them. What? What are you going to write on these stones? Let's take a look. Look at Pasuk Gimel. What's it say then?
Kol
וכתבת עליהם את כל דברי התורה הזאת, לעברך. What's HaTorah הזאת? Whatever Zot HaTorah was, this is Torah Zot. Is that simple as could be? The speech begins Zot HaTorah, understand? And ends with HaTorah HaZot. So the Torah and Sefer Dvarim are the laws of Sefer Dvarim. Moshe says so, and the book says so. And not to make it icing, I mean, we have a whole ceremony just like Har Sinai with Olot and Shlamim, and Mizbeach and everything on Har Ival. We're going to relive in the land of Israel now. Believe it or not, the land of Israel is important. Even Shechem, okay? Now, Pasachet, we have to be deserving of it. V'katavta al avanim et kol divrei HaTorah azot be'haritev. What did we write on these stones? HaTorah azot. Now with that was when they came in. The last commandment in Chumash is in chapter 31 in Devarim, where Moshe says every 7 years, what do we have to do? We have to relive the whole Sinai experience, the whole nation. And what are we we're gonna gather together. Not Har Sinai, but B'makom Asher Yivchar Hashem in Yerushalayim. And what are we going to read out loud? The Torah, which is not the Torah, but the laws of Sefer Dvarim. Mesachet Sotah even says so, right? That's the law. And that's Hakel. What do we read? Hakel et Am in the source there. To everyone gathers, the women, the children, everybody, to learn to fear God, and to learn the laws and to learn to fear God. V'shum l'asot kol divrei HaTorah azot. And therefore, every 7 years we should have our Shim Ashras. We got the Torah. It's so simple, isn't it? The Torah, the main speech in Sefer Devarim, are the laws of making a nation serving God in the land of Israel. It's applying our goal of Har Sinai. Our goal is I want to be a nation representing a sovereign nation representing God. So first I have to capture the land and be worthy of capturing the land. But once I have the land, I have to set up a nation that acts in a way that represents God. And the guidebook of how to set up that nation and how to run that nation are the laws in Sefer Dvarim. It's the main book of laws of Chumash. It's so important, these laws in constant repetition. Now, want to see when Moshe taught these laws earlier? You have 2 minutes, huh? Read the first line of the book. You should know by heart, probably. Eila Dvarim, Asher Diber Moshe Kol Yisrael. No, right here, what's coming up in this book, the first line of the book is the introduction. What's coming up later in this book? The Dvarim, which Moshe, because there's the Torah, there's also Moshe's Musar. Remember Rashi says these are words of rebuke? Remember? These are the Dvarim that Moshe told Israel, not Bever Yarden. When else did Moshe give the speech? What's it say? In the Midbar, where else? Barabah, where else? Lots of places, because it's Mishnah. It needs. But when's the main time he taught it? Pasuk Bet. On the 11-day journey from where to where? From Chorev to Kadesh Barnea. Got it? On the Derech Seir Highway. What happened in Kadesh Barnea? We sent the spies. Read the speech in chapter 1. What should have happened from Kadesh Barnea? We should have gone to Israel. What happened instead? Well, we sinned. We weren't worthy of the land of Israel. No, some people thought our army can take on anybody, right? Remember the Mapilim? Oh, we'll go anyhow, right? Even though we sinned. Remember? Things don't change, right? But you're not worthy of God's help. Don't risk your life. So what do you call it? So God said you have to be. If you want my help, God can help you, but if you're not keeping the mitzvot properly, He won't be able to help you. I mean, He wants to, but anyway. What I'm getting at is that's why the first speech is what went wrong, because Moshe doesn't want it to happen again. Understand? And that's why the first speech is not a different version of the Bible. It's a pep talk to make sure that people don't make the same mistakes as their parents did. And that's why things are different from a different angle. That explains all the discrepancies. Now, but Moshe's given this speech on the 11-day journey, because this 11-day journey was the journey to go to the land of Israel, wasn't it? And therefore, what did Moshe teach during that 11-day journey on the way to Kadesh Barnea, on the way to Israel? The laws of Sefer Dvarim, because that's what they have to keep soon. Now, after the sin of the spies, what happened? All these laws are on the back burner because they're not applicable in the desert, are they? Okay, no, you can't have them in the desert. Now, in the 40th year, Vahibar B'Yim Shana, the 40th year, we're about to go in again. Moshe's about to die. Says, let's try it again, okay? So the last thing Moshe does, he teaches. Now, what does Chumash record? Moshe records the speech the last time he gives it. Now I need to prove to you that this speech is called the Torah, that the Chukim Mishpatim, now we have the mitzvah, I need to prove to you that the Chukim Mishpatim are the Torah. It's real easy. That's our last source. In chapter 4, look in chapter 4 in the regular Chumash, the first line. Moshe says, Vatay Yisrael, Shema Chukim Mishpatim. It's the introduction. Listen, laws I'm keeping to you, don't pick and choose, etc. So Tosif. And then he gets to Pasuk Hey. Listen to this introduction, it's famous. See Pasuk Hey? Re'eh means understand. Moshe is telling the people, it's introduction to the main speech in chapter 4. Re'eh limadeti etchem, Chukim Mishpatim. I'm about to teach you Chukim Mishpatim. Kasher tzivan Hashem Elokai. That what? I don't care what the Bible critics say and what you taught in school. That God taught me. These aren't Moshe. Moshe's not writing Sefer Dvarim. Moshe is reviewing the laws in Sefer Dvarim and giving musar. But the laws are from God. Every one of them. Got it? Moshe is emphasizing that. That these are laws that God gave me. Okay? To keep lasot kem beker ba'aretz. Asher kam. Then ushmartem basitem why ki chokhmatchem v'techem le'ne'amim. Remember Yosef was chacham v'navon in the eyes of. If we keep the laws properly, that will make us look good in the eyes of the nations. They'll come to respect us. Okay? Remember, ki bi goy gadol asher lo krovim elav kashem elokenu. And then pasachet. Look, the thing. Umi goy gadol. That goes back to Breshit, doesn't it? That's called goy gadol. We're fulfilling God's goal, picking Avraham Avinu. Umi goy gadol asher lo chukim u'shpatim tzadikim kechol haTorah azot asher nochi. What's the Torah? The chukim u'shpatim that are just and upright. So now I have a definition. Chukim Mishpatim are this Torah. Remember? So we have the HaMitzvah section, which is Shema V'Yim Shema. The Torah, which is the Chukim Mishpatim, from chapter 26. And the Ten Commandments, L'chot Even. And now, when Moshe goes up in Sefer Shemot, in Parshat Mishpatim, when Moshe, the first line of the source sheet, Moshe goes up, and God says, come up the mountain, and be there. And what am I going to give you? L'chot Even, right? The Ten Commandments. And the Torah and the Mitzvah, which I'm writing down for you to teach them. What's that? That's the laws of Sefer Devarim, isn't it? And that's the Torah. It's as simple as could be. I think it just makes sense, doesn't it? So, and that's what he teaches. Now, the beauty of the word Torah is a way of it's a procedure of how to accomplish something. Remember, there's the Torah in making shul, a Torah in how to bring the Korban. There's a Torah in becoming a nation serving God. Once that becomes the principal idea, the guidebook, then every interpretation of this guidebook and its expounding over the ages becomes Torah. You follow? Torah Shmiktav, Torah Shema. Because what, in essence, we're doing, when you focus on the goal, every time you have a Jewish law, the goal is your Mamlechet Konei B'Gad Kadosh. Because we have a covenantal commitment to be God's people, and we're employees on behalf of God. And therefore, when I'm asking about any difficult situation or confusing, when I have to balance my values, remember you're a nation chosen to represent God. God can help you. He's in charge of everything. But we have to be worthy of His help. And in making all decisions, as an individual, as a nation, as a rabbi, what value overrides what? That always has to be the most overriding value, because that's the goal. How to fulfill it? I say, ask your local Navi. Because you need guidance. It's complicated. It's challenging. But that's our eternal destiny as God's people. And emunah, that if we act properly, God will help us. That's why we daven. To remember, we don't daven save us. We daven give us wisdom to understand the Torah properly. Remember, when did we say don't we daven for that before we pledge allegiance in Shema? Our first bracha in Shmoneh Esrei is give us the ability. That's what I was asking for before. I wish we knew what to do, but sometimes you pray to God to help you make the right decisions. But boy, it's complicated. But knowing and wanting to do tshuva, instead of blaming other people. So knowing that God can help, but it's a function of our deeds. If that's really understood, that will become then prayer becomes transformative. That's why it's so important to daven. But davening is not a vending machine. Press this button and you get that result. That's idol worship, IDLE. It's the ideal worship of God is when you understand how you're chosen, why you're chosen, and how you have to apply those guide rules, because you always have to be a nation representing God. Okay? Okay, thank you so much, and we should pray for better news.
So it's about Yeshua.
That image, that photo, you said your granddaughter.
Yeah.
John captures my attention. In fact, Sarah